We have Nicole Malliotakis. How are you, Nicole?
How are you guys doing? It's great to be with the three of you.
Well, thank you. And another common sense lady from the great borough of Staten Island. Tell us, Nicole, what's on your mind today?
There's a lot on my mind, John, but I think to your listeners, they would be very interested to hear more about the bail reform changes that are going to be taking place in January. And I've sort of been out there for the last week. I've been out there since it's passed, but for the last week in particular, I've been trying to educate the public on what this really means, right? Because the bail reform laws came into effect in April. We passed it, but it will go into effect in January. And this discussion started with the incident of Khalif Browder, right? Which we all can agree that no one should be in Rikers Island for months or even years waiting a trial. It's ridiculous, and especially this poor kid who was in Rikers for allegedly stealing a backpack, right? And so we all agree that we have to give people their constitutionally protected right to a speedy trial, and there are ways that we should address that. But what the state legislature did is now say, hey, 90% of the arrested population are going to be re-released back onto the street to return on their own recognizance, not considering their criminal history, not considering whether they pose a threat to society, and including serious crimes or, criminally negligent homicide, selling drugs on school grounds, stalking and strangulation. These are things that should concern the public, and we have to make sure that either we repeal the law and start fresh, actually taking in the input of the public and law enforcement, or, we're going to have some severe consequences, I think, come January.
What I found this is Dominic Carter speaking. What I found interesting, I was in Atlanta the other day, Georgia, and I'm watching the Fox News channel. And I happened to see you on one of the shows, and you kept saying, go to my website if you don't believe me, to see the crimes. And I said, well, maybe I'm tired. Maybe I'm just not understanding what the Assemblywoman is saying here. And so I went to your website. And what's the website again?
NicoleForNY.com, and we have a special page dedicated to this, NicoleForNY.com/bail. And you can get it just by going to my regular website. Yep.
And what I could not believe, looking at the list, among the alleged incidents, promoting a sexual performance by a child and failure to register as a sex offender, and you can walk. I explain this to me, because I'm not getting it. We agree what happened to Khalif Browder was absolutely horrible, but we're going to go from one extreme to the absolute other?
But that's what New York does. See, the state legislature and our governor, unfortunately, take everything to the extreme. They don't address the issue, right? They actually go much, much further. And you're absolutely right. But think about the domestic violence victim. If you have a stalker, an ex-lover that stalks you, that person can stalk you, trespass on your property, strangle you, and they will just get released back onto the street to await trial, and in that interim could possibly kill you. I mean, it's something that you should be, I think, concerned about. And every New Yorker should just be concerned about this, because it doesn't make any sense. There's a big difference between stealing a backpack and criminally negligent homicide, or dealing drugs to our children on school grounds, or, as you said, these sexual crimes. And that, to me, I think, we've already seen, I think, New York City decline based on horrible policies that have been put in place by our mayor. They've created an environment where people think that they can get away with this stuff. And quite frankly, in many cases, they are. We've had bad judges who are releasing individuals who've threatened to kill other people, in Brooklyn, for example. And they just release them back onto the street, assuming they're going to return on their own recognizance. And when they don't, the mayor wants to offer them Mets tickets and gift cards and movie passes to incentivize it.
That is such a joke. That is such a joke.
And what makes it even worse is that you're putting our law enforcement in harm's way now, because they got to go find that individual, right? They got to get a warrant and find that individual. You're risking them, and you're taking them, distracting them from other things that they could be doing. So it's bad all around. And what the worst part of it is, perhaps the way it was done. It was passed in the middle of the night. I think it was 5 a.m. when this bill was finally voted on. The people, we got it around midnight to read. So I can guarantee you that not one legislator in Albany read this bill and knew what was in it. We debated it on our side. We voted no. I don't think there was one Republican that voted for this. But they did it in the middle of the night when there was no press in the building. The public had gone home to go to sleep. They didn't take into account the oppositions from law enforcement, from prosecutors, and the input. And now we're even seeing people like the Daily News. The Daily News was one of the biggest proponents of bail reform, and they're saying this goes too far. Wow. Our Attorney General, Tish James, is saying there's concerns about the implementation of this. And no one's listening, and I think people need to call the governor. They need to go on my website, by the way, the NicoleForNY.com. That website, I have a petition on there to the governor. But you need to call the governor. You need to call your state legislator and tell them that, let's not move forward and let's not allow this to take effect. We should be going up to Albany for a special session. Let's repeal it, and in the new year when we go back, we can actually take our time and craft something that's appropriate.
Nicole, it's Kevin McCullough, or as I like to call you, the next congressional representative from the great island of Staten Island in southern Brooklyn. Let me ask you, has the governor's office completely been non-responsive? Have they issued any type of response, even tertiary, to just say, we've made our decision, we're pressing ahead with this? Or is there a wedge? Do you think there's doubt beginning to form that if we just push hard enough, we can make a difference here?
Well, look, he has not said anything, to date about whether he would bring us up for a special session. What I would say is we have to keep the pressure on, because this is not coming just from the Republican side, okay? The Democrats passed this in Albany, but there are Democratic prosecutors around the state who are saying that this goes very far, and it's very bad idea. My district attorney on Staten Island, Mike McMahon, is one of those Democratic prosecutors that says this is the wrong thing. We should not be moving forward with this. And, if your own Attorney General is saying that, we need to have caution here and ensure that something like this is implemented properly, that should give you some pause. And if you hear every editorial board in the state almost saying that this goes too far, including the ones that supported and were pushing for bail reform, that should raise a red flag. I think people just need to continue to call the governor, call their state legislators, and tell them that they're concerned about this law going into effect.
Well, let's have disclosure. Who was pushing it? Let's talk about it. Who was pushing it in the state Senate? Who was pushing it in the Assembly? If there's somebody to blame, let's call it. Who's to blame?
Well, to be honest, it's the governor. The governor's mostly to blame because this was done in the budget process. See, that's the issue. There's no co-sponsor of this bill, as you would see other bills. And it makes it wrong because it was jammed into the budget. And it shouldn't be in that budget process. A controversial piece of legislation that has serious ramifications on our public safety and our judicial system should not be jammed in the budget with everything else. It should have been taken outside the budget, and we should have been debating it and having hearings on this and discussing it and voting for it on its own merit, not jammed in the budget. Once there's a budget deal, they have to guarantee the votes, the leaders. But I think Carl Hastie, the speaker, supports it. Andrea Stewart-Cousins, the leader on the other side, supports it as well in the Senate because the three of them agreed to this and made it a part of the budget. So this was a deal that was signed off by the three leaders. And so I think that's why people need to speak to the governor about this. And you saw the other day in the New York Post, it was a huge article, a drug dealer who allegedly was selling drugs that led to overdoses, was facing 100 years in jail, and he was let go with no bail, and he's praising the Cuomo, saying that he should run for president. And he was thankful for this new law. That's who is appreciative of these new laws, the bad guys, not the good guys, not the law-abiding citizens.
I just can't take this anymore.
It's a bit rough. Assemblywoman, will judges have the discretion to overrule this? And well, first, why don't you answer that part?
Well, no, it takes away the judge's discretion.
Are you telling me that a sitting judge? I cover a lot of federal trials. Are you telling me that in a city court, or that the judge is not going to have any discretion?
They're taking away the judge's discretion only in some cases. If they feel that they will not return, then they can still use some discretion, but it really does eliminate discretion in most cases. And honestly, you're either going to get arrested and re-released, or you're just not going to even get arrested. They're just going to give you a ticket as you walk down the street, an appearance ticket to come to court. So, for example, we just had this incident in Bay Ridge where about 30 vehicles had their tires slashed or their vehicles vandalized. That person gets arrested and most likely going to be charged with criminal I forget the exact crime. They're going to be charged in the second degree due to the damage. They will just get a desk appearance ticket and continue to walk down the street until they have to appear to court. In some cases, it depends on the degree of the crime, right? Criminal mischief is what I was thinking. So it really is unbelievable that they're not even.
And if I don't have ID on me,
ticket.
And I tell the police officer my name is Clark Kent, and with no ID, what are they going to do? Write a ticket to Clark Kent?
Yeah, I don't know. These are the kinks they're going to have to work out, John. But what I could tell you is even criminal possession of a firearm is on this list.
If I have a gun and it's against the law, it used to be 1 year minimum. Used to be 1 year minimum when we reduced the crime. Now you get a desk appearance ticket?
You will be released from custody without bail if you have criminal possession of a firearm, even if you have criminal possession of a weapon on school grounds. And also, as you mentioned, there's a whole slew of crimes, and people really should go to my website.
The next thing I want to hear is
and see the list.